Career Path Strategy for Internal Promotions. Today, we are here with Professor Sean Sands. He is a professor of marketing and departmental chair for marketing and management at Swinburne University of Technology. He also an associate editor for the Journal of Advertising Research, as well as the International Journal of Advertising. Thank you so much, Sean, for being here today with us.
Great, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So let's start with the first question of if you think about it, what are some of the expectation in terms of the KPI for an internal promotion, say for lecturer or senior lecturer?
Yeah, sure. I think they kind of differ by university. Each university has their own KPIs, but they're generally, all universities will be around the three core areas of research, teaching, and service of some form. And for a level B, so a lecturer or a senior lecturer, they tend to just scale upwards by level in terms of the amount of research, service, and teaching expectations. Yeah, if I give an example, at Swinburne, there might be we might have an expectation of 2 A-level ABDC journals across a 3-year period for a lecturer. That would probably go up to 3 and a bit to 4, so kind of maybe almost doubling across the lecturer to senior lecturer role. So it kind of just goes up across the different levels. And the same kind of applies for service as well. So there's I guess the higher the rank, the more you're expected to be doing some kind of service to the university and also beyond.
Sure. Can I explore more in terms of the word service? Because at some university, they call it service and engagement. Some places they call service, engagement, and leadership. So say at Swinburne University, when you talk about service, do you including engagement as well as leadership?
Absolutely, yeah. So, and when we talk about engagement, it's think about engagement with industry, engagement outside the school, so with other schools, engagement with other academics. Across the university, increasingly that's important, looking at interdisciplinary teams and building collaborations outside of the business school. But yes, leadership. So leadership it might be teaching leadership, it might be research leadership, you might be a course director, you might be taking on unit leadership, developing new courses, you might be developing executive education. So all of those things would kind of be bucketed under that kind of area of leadership engagement.
Yes, yes. Can I just ask about, say, for example, who are, say, a lecturer or senior lecturer, I noticed one of the very popular service role for them is something like a program director. So let's say if I have being a program director for a year or two, is it enough for me to have just that title of doing a leadership role? Or do I need to have some significant type of performance to showcase to the panel?
Yeah, I'd say definitely it's performance. The title in itself is a nice to have, but really I think an interview panel that's looking for promotion is looking at how have you shifted the needle? What have you actually done to either improve the program? What are the KPIs that you're measuring? And that might be KPIs that the school measures that you've just implemented in terms of the kind of innovations that you've brought into the program that you're leading. So definitely it's around, I think, how do you move the needle as opposed to just are you engaged?
Yeah, that's very good. Now, if I were to touch on the research part, say if I were to be a 40% research, now please correct me if I'm wrong. In the recent years, the trend have been changed from doing a lot of paper to say some paper and then experience in consulting project and research projects and grants and all that. Is this some type of expectation in, say, in Melbourne or at your university as well?
I'd say definitely yes. I think there's, if you take your time, your research time, be it 40%, 60%, whatever it is, in that time, you're expected to do a number of things. One, as you rightly mentioned, is publishing papers. Obviously, the higher quality papers you're publishing in, the better. Obviously, most universities in Australia use the APDC listing. But beyond that, it's definitely about how do you engage with industry, and that really, I think for promotion, it's important to show the connections between your research, between your teaching, between your service, between your engagement, to kind of show how it's all interlinked. But yeah, increasingly there's an expectation of whether it be grants, small grants are okay, seed grants, applying for grants, even just being in the mix with ARC linkages and things like that, just going through the process of applying, I think is really important. So all of that is really coming under that research time and is increasingly important.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Now, let's move towards, say, a senior lecturer want to become an associate professor. I heard that is a very difficult step from a senior lecturer to become an associate professor, especially for the internal promotion. Now, what will be the expectation in terms of the external grant income and also publications?
Again, varies by school and university. I think if I was to take Swinburne for an example, you're probably looking at again, it's about a doubling from the senior lecturer role, roughly. But I think what you're looking at more is so you start to look at things like international recognition and international impact and impact on the discipline more broadly.
Yes.
So how is whether it be your research or your teaching, how are the different elements of your portfolio coming together to kind of take you beyond even just a national level to kind of a more international level, and how are you impacting, whether it be a particular stream of research or thinking or teaching innovations, if that's particularly your focus.
Yes, that is quite interesting there. Let me ask you about this word, the international recognition. So say if I were to get some, say, a best reviewer award, something like that, is this the recognition that you're talking about, or you're referring to, say, best paper award or big grants with international colleague, or what do you mean by international recognition?
Yeah, look, I think it's multifaceted. I think one part of it is the research that you're doing, the stream of research, the body of work. Is it contributing in some way to knowledge in the discipline at an international level? And that's a particular way where you can start to show that you might be influencing, papers in a particular stream and citations and things like that. But yes, I think things like awards and recognition from international bodies, whether they be journals, best reviewers, best papers, international conferences. They all add to that, I guess, flavor of international recognition.
Yes, yes. All right. I think that's very clear there. If I want to touch briefly on teaching, what will be your KPI in terms of teaching for the internal promotion?
I think at a base level, KPI for teaching is teaching quality, teaching feedback. So how your teaching scores, what's the kind of qualitative feedback you're getting from students too, and that could be solicited or unsolicited. So solicited through the traditional feedback programs, the kind of satisfaction surveys that go out at the end of semester, or even just kind of the unsolicited. You might get messages through LinkedIn from people who've graduated just saying thanks so much for all you did and whatever you taught me, you kind of take into practice. Those things I think are really valuable as well. But I think beyond that, it's about how are you innovating in teaching. We've been through COVID, and I think most universities have looked at how they can become more blended or flipped, or how they integrate online and offline, whether it be in the lead up to the classroom, so pre-classroom, or how they can kind of make the classroom experience more like less of a lecture and more of an interactive experience. So
Yes.
if you can demonstrate what you're doing in that respect, maybe how you're integrating new technologies, AI in particular, how are you helping students to manage or understand the use of AI? How are you potentially using it in whatever it is that you're doing in teaching? How are you challenging students to think outside the box and recognize that AI is not just a tool to kind of help you plagiarize an assignment, but might be a way to really help you think more creatively, or to kind of act more like a co-pilot and kind of,
Yes.
I guess, help you as a student.
Exactly. I have observed that Swinburne actually doing very well with online teaching and blended learning as well in the past with yourself and then your colleague there. Um, Now, if for in terms of internal promotion, I have heard before that the university will only count whatever happened after your last promotion or since you joined the university. Is that the case?
Typically, yeah, that's typically the case. In fact, we're going through coming into our promotion period now. There's been the kind of expression go out to staff, and some staff coming and talking to the panels about their expressions of intention to apply. For those people that have applied maybe a couple of years ago, kind of the advice is most likely think about leaving it for a little bit longer, because a 2-year period, as you say, everything that was kind of taken into account in your prior promotion round typically is that promotion round. So you really want to be building a solid case from your prior promotion to current. So it's really most interview panels are going to be looking for sustained performance, and that point about sustained performance usually takes takes a couple of cycles. So I probably expect 3-4-ish years before you're probably going for the next promotion round for most people. Although it's not, people do go quicker. It's not a be all and end all.
Yes, I think you touched on a very interesting point that many universities, including my university, already put in an expression of interest for promotion for this year round. Not
Mm.
that I will apply this year, but let's say if I were to apply next year for promotion, say, do you think is it a good idea for me to start talking to my head of department and the dean this year and do, say, a 12 months plan prior to my actual application to see what are some of my weaknesses so that I can fill that before time?
I think it's really important to identify your weaknesses, because that's really the area that you want to the areas that you want to focus on, and try and make sure that you've got a really well-rounded promotion application going into, and like when it goes in. I think also what can happen is you could be partnered with another staff member who could act as a mentor. I think that can be really valuable as well to help you kind of identify and work on those areas for improvement.
Yes, yes, I think that's a very good point. Now, if to move on to the next point, say, is it possible for a person to get promoted to, say, associate professor or a professor with just a lot of research grant income and project without much teaching or much publication output?
I think the short answer is yes. I think what we've seen when I was previously at Monash and now at Swinburne, have brought these in as well, but we do have dedicated research and dedicated teaching pathways. And in fact, the teaching pathway is just coming into Swinburne now, but it was introduced in Monash probably around 2015 or 16. But these are pathways where people that perform and have an interest in one particular area, be it teaching or research, can actually focus on that and have the opportunity to go through the promotion all the way from lecturer to level E. So I think that opportunity is increasingly there. There is opportunity for those people that don't want to perform in a more balanced role to focus on one or the other.
Yes. You touch on a very good point again in terms of specialized role of, say, research, teaching, or leadership type of role.
Mm.
Or say goal balance like 40-40-20, something like that. Do you think which is a safer way, or is there any preference from the university perspective?
Look, I think if we're talking teaching and research or teaching, I think it's up to the individual. I think if you were then looking to a leadership role, it would probably make sense to have, you're going to lose a lot of your time to a leadership role. So you'd probably want to make sure you've got an established, you've done a fair bit of work in research and teaching, you've built up your portfolio, you've got a good CV, you've probably been promoted to a point where you're okay to kind of lose a bit of time.
Yes.
Because when you start to move into those roles, you can, some of them can become, 80-90% of your entire role is
Yes.
that leadership position. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, sure. I might as well ask one extra question on this. I have seen in the past that there are a number of universities might look for, say, 50 or 60% teaching focus. But then there might be some people who are very good in research output and then think that,
Mm.
hey, look, there is no current promotion at the moment, there is no other opportunity. And this he or she might apply for 50 or 60 or 70 teaching focus. And once he or she got the job, he or she feel like he or she stuck in that high level, high percentage of teaching. Do you think
Mm.
this such strategy is good for people for the long term, like this type of cases?
Look, I think this is a school specific scenario. Like I'll give you the example of Swinburne is we have a system currently where each year there's an assessment based on the prior 3 years performance. And that assessment basically in terms of research, for instance, looks at your outputs and your income generated over that 3-year period. And there's a kind of formula that takes all of that into account and spits out a number that's your percentage for research time. So you might come into a position with a particularly high teaching load, but over time, if your outputs get you to the point where you qualify for a higher research load, then that can change as well. So I don't think you're stuck.
Yes,
But again, I can't talk to all schools. Every
sure.
school has a different
Yes.
system. So, but I think in general, if we're talking about people coming into a role where they may be sacrificing taking more research or more teaching than they might have wanted to, I think it's better to potentially have a job than not. So I think you can get
Yes.
in, get your foot in the door, prove yourself, and then just be open with the senior leaders and, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to be, and can you help me get to that?
Wow, what a nice point that you point out there with such a fair system of the workload evaluation over year. Some universities do not have that. Luckily, my university have the same system as yours, but I know some
Mm,
universities, once you stuck with that, you have to apply
yeah,
for changing the percentage and all that. So that's very good.
yeah.
Which given at a point why I think Swinburne is a good place to be as well. Yeah. So if someone were to be a teaching focus, do you have a suggestion on how he or she can grow in this path? Because it's not as
Mm.
simple as research that you can count the money, count the publication, but the teaching focus is a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, look, I think it comes down to innovation. And I think importantly, people think about the teaching focused tracks. I think it's important to say that they're not necessarily solely teaching focused. I think those that excel in these positions are also generating research, but it's teaching focused research. So you're probably publishing in marketing education or education journals. So I think the mere fact that you're going into a teaching stream doesn't mean that you're not ever going to do research again. I think it's just that your research is probably going to be focused on teaching and teaching innovations.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of great people at all sorts of universities here in Australia that are teaching focused and doing some really good teaching innovation research.
Yes, I think you made a very good point about the scholar work or publication in teaching
Mm,
or student engagement or university management. So this is not just for teaching focus, it's actually for anyone. In
mm,
fact, NSMAC also have a marketing education track, which you should share a few of those. And I think it's
mm,
very important as us, we are the educator, we should improve and be innovative in the way we teach and engage with students and other community as well. So I think that is very good
absolutely.
tips. And when we say a 40-40 apply for promotion, that's we also help with those 40-40 people as well in
Mm,
terms of
mm,
that
mm.
papers and all. Yeah, that's very interesting point. Now, let's say if I were to apply for promotion, say this year, and I were to fail my internal promotions, what are some of my options?
Yep. Look, I think it's every year there's a bunch of people that go through this process and put a lot of effort into the application and are rightly so come out disappointed if they're not successful. Again, each university has a different kind of response to this. One thing a lot of universities say is that those people that weren't successful typically can't, without the dean's approval, go for promotion the next year. So they typically will wait 2 years. The idea being that you kind of need that 2 year period to be able to identify the weaknesses and work on improvements for the next cycle. But what I think some things that can happen is look for a mentor. So first of all, look for feedback. Look for feedback from the panel or feedback from the dean or from somebody around where your weaknesses were. Develop a action plan around how you're going to address those over the next, let's say, 2 year period. And then if you can, look for someone that can mentor you. And that might be someone in the school, or it could be someone external as well. It may even be, your ex-supervisor at another university that's just, is already level E and can give you some really good advice. So tap into those networks, I think, and with that, build networks when you're at conferences, because I think people generally are pretty willing to reach out, and when people reach out, to be able to help and give feedback. So I think seek the feedback, seek clarification, look for improvement opportunities, and develop a plan to address those gaps.
Yes, that's very important. And the network can also help with the referee as well, because some university
Mm,
might have 3, 4, 5 external referee or international level that would help. Now, let's
correct.
say if my university would allow me to push my application ahead, regardless that my head of department or dean academic not support my application. I have a choice to
Mm,
push ahead to the
mm.
pro-vice chancellor to support the case. Do you think is it a good idea for me to still push ahead regardless of what other deans and head of department suggest me to go ahead or not?
My guess would be that the reasons for their pushing back would probably be grounded in something. There's probably a reason why they are saying it's not the right time. Um, I know in our situation, we need the dean's sign-off approval to go to the next stage. So if the dean said no, there's no kind of way around that. Flip side to that is I think that Deans are generally pretty supportive. If there's a case, I think, so if you can show the numbers, show the metrics, show where you stack up, I think you're probably going to get a fair viewing from your dean or your department chair to kind of go for a promotion. But yeah, I'd say the short answer is probably think hard about not taking their advice.
Yes, yes. Think hard about like why they say that, how we're going to improve and see our weakness. And this type of thing, we have
Correct.
to really be open mind. Like obviously when whoever that apply for promotion, he or she would think that they are ready. But from other people's perspective, we have to try to be open-minded as well.
Mm-hmm.
My follow-up question to that is, say, if my department have 5 people going for a promotion this year, and my university may not have much budget, will that play a role in terms of how many can get promoted? Or let's say if 5 of them like deserve to get it, and the panel said they should get it, will there be any impact in terms of the budget that is available?
So in my experience, I haven't seen that as a consideration. And I've been, obviously as department chair, I kind of see the applications go through to the promotion committee. I've been on the promotion committee as well. And it's never been something that's been considered. Whether or not it is at other universities, I couldn't say, but I would like to think it's probably not a
Yes.
factor. I think, if people get through the promotion committee, and they meet the criteria, I think there's no reason not to be promoted.
Yes, I'm so pleased to hear your statement of that, because it's feel like, okay, we actually not fight with other people, we work with other
Yeah,
colleagues and grow together. So I think that is a very good point. Now come to
absolutely.
my, yeah, thank you. And come to my last question. So if you could go back in time, what will be the one suggestion that you might like to give to yourself as a younger self when it's come to internal promotions?
Yeah, I think I probably would have, after I graduated, probably worked a lot harder in the first few years on my portfolio. I probably took a little bit longer to I was more focused on one area as opposed to all 3 areas. So I think, be strategic and kind of make sure you're paying attention. If you're, in a multi, research teaching service kind of position, make sure that you're paying attention to all those different elements.
Mm.
And try to build out as quickly as possible after graduating, a clear strategy around what you want to achieve and work towards achieving it.
Yes, that is such a good advice in terms of, plan well, think ahead, which area you want to be known for, and also
Mm,
work strategically with your probably supervisor to build and grow up from
mm,
there. So,
absolutely.
yes, so this is a career path strategy for internal promotion with Professor Sean Sands. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.